Okay.
So,
Hey,
hi, welcome
welcome.
everybody. I'm Sue Kelly, and I'm a behavior therapist with the Ron Joyce, and I work in patient education in mental health. And I've been at it for about 20 years with the hospital, and for about another 20 years in the community of working with children and families.
And I am Michelle McVitie. I am a child life specialist. I have been working for Hamilton Health Sciences for 18 years and in mental health for about 12 years. So today we are going to talk about meltdowns. Whether you have a 3-year-old or you have a 15-year-old or you have a 45-year-old at home, we all tend to have meltdowns. You know, it is normal. We are emotional beings. However, when they get in the way of life and they happen frequently and they get aggressive and it becomes a safety issue, that's when we start becoming concerned. So that's what we're going to be talking about this session. So
So it starts off by starting to understand the what the meltdown is and thinking about what exactly your child is struggling with, right? So, it's basically about what's getting in the way of them trying to communicate with you, right? So they're having some kind of emotional experience. They can't find the means to communicate that with you, so it's going to come out behaviorally, right? So instead, we want you to try and figure out what is it that's lacking, what skills do they need, and we wanted to figure out, right, to learn how to help them before they feel this need, before the meltdown sort of takes over. Boy, I have seen that in the grocery store many times and experienced that. I'm sure
and this is
many of you.
not absolutely, and this is not something the learning what is lacking, what skills do they need. We're not doing this in the moment. We're not asking them questions as they're melting down on the ground. This is something that we will have to figure out as adults and have conversations, planning ahead. So we're going to go through all that. Did you click or did I click? I just want to make sure.
No,
Okay.
you did. Yep, you did.
So this question comes up where, well, the child is melting down and then I feel like I should be giving in because the child's upset. We're in the grocery store. It's embarrassing. And we turn sometimes into those I insist parents where you need to stop this. This behavior is not okay. And we have to kind of get away from that thinking when you've got a child that's melting down and there are issues going on. If we're looking at it as a win or lose situation, then you're going to be really stuck, right? So this child is struggling with something. They don't know how to tell you in words, so they're telling you in their behavior. So instead of thinking, am I giving in? Instead, let's rephrase that in our head. Let's think about a different mindset. So sometimes discipline and consequence are necessary, but not in the middle of a meltdown. And we're usually having a meltdown as well. If a child is embarrassing us, you're not going to get this treat. We're going straight home. We're not going to the park. And then we are kind of having our own temper tantrum. And then the two of you are having an explosion. So in the moment is never the time to be throwing out more discipline, which can then turn into big fight, right? So again, we're going to think about what are they going through in the moment, which you can't always do in the moment. And, you're not thinking rationally. So right now, what are we going to do to help them calm down and how can we move forward? And then we're going to do a lot of planning ahead. So we have a trigger word here for a lot of parents, and that's self. And
I
why do
don't
we
have
have that?
I don't have any time, Michelle. What do I do if I don't have any time for self-care? What can I do because I've got kids and they're driving me crazy and they won't listen to me. So how do I have time to take care of myself?
Yeah. Well, you just hire a nanny, I guess, and you get a jet flown in and you get picked up, right?
That'd be great. I'll send the kids to nannies.
That's
That's what I'll do.
right. Yeah. So the reason why we say self-care, and we're saying this on the third slide, we will get into the nitty-gritties of why meltdowns, but Sue and I are huge advocates for self-care. And self-care, I'm not talking about going to the spa and taking a trip or taking a week off. Those are really nice, but we're talking about everyday things. And everyday things is setting boundaries, asking for what you need, saying no. Some of us are just saying yes to everybody, but no to ourselves. We can be really hard on ourselves and forgiving ourselves. Validate your struggles, because what tends to happen is even parents that have children with difficulties, with behavioral issues, they blame themselves a lot, or they get really frustrated with their partner because their partner's giving in and then I gave in, and we kind of get into this. So forgiving ourselves for that and saying, how can we move forward? And it's just even alone time. So going to bed early or getting up earlier so you can have some downtime yourself. Because when you're dealing with meltdowns and we are feeling like we're barely keeping our head above water, how are we going to deal with this child's meltdown if our heads are going to pop off? So if we can turn the volume down on our stress levels, we're a good role model to our child, and we're better able to deal with this. Because what tends to happen is if I'm stressed and then Sue has a meltdown, I just want to throw butterflies and fairies at her and say, calm down, you need to stop, or I'm going to fix it for you. Let me fix it for you so this can go away. And it's very invalidating. Sue doesn't feel heard, and then her temper tantrum gets louder, or she's going to shut down completely. Okay? So
One of
again,
the things that's on here, Michelle, that I think is really, it kind of jumps out at me for families and for parents is asking for what you need. And
mhm,
sometimes because we're so caught in the chaos of what's going on, with our homes and our kids and everything that needs, that we're tending to everybody else's needs, that we really do lose sight of really what it is that we do need.
mhm,
So when we do try to take that step back to say, what is it that I need for myself? Sometimes I don't really even know what that is because I've just become so disconnected. So
right.
taking those little micro moments to take a breath, take that walk, takes a little bit of extra time in the shower in the morning and leave that to-do list out in the living room and not in the shower with you. Just to allow yourself that time to sort of reconnect. And you might be able to find that, taking some of these other steps might become a little bit more clearly as, when you are able to identify what are the needs that you do feel are maybe lacking in your life, right? But if you're not able to figure that out, it's going to be pretty tough.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a lot of steps involved in setting boundaries and asking for what you need. Yeah.
There's a lot.
Um, so Dr. Siegel wrote The Whole Brain Child, and he talks about the upstairs meltdowns and the downstairs meltdowns. So the upstairs meltdowns, they describe as they're working from their logical brain, and the downstairs is more of that emotional brain. So, that shuts off all reasoning and understanding. Okay? So what the upstairs meltdown needs is more routines, guidelines, and set expectations. Some of your children might be having meltdowns, having rough mornings because there's no routine. There's a lot of chaos in the house. There's no set expectations. This kid can throw a tantrum and do what he wants, and nothing happens. So I'm agitated about that when I'm doing everything I'm supposed to, and I still get yelled at. So then we've got the other side, the downstairs meltdown, and that's when we need to get to the bottom of why a child is having a meltdown, and address the need. So this is a little bit more dealing with those big emotions, helping them be able to calm down the emotion, and sometimes doing a little bit of column A will help with column B. And it might be a little bit of detective work for you to kind of figure out what is the best thing for your child. Okay.
So the upstairs brain really is that sort of, it's a lot of that sort of upper level sort of thinking, and it allows us to sort of think before we act. It's that decision making, problem solving. Um, we have more control over our emotions. We focus. We have empathy for other people. We become much more self-aware. So it's very much sort of like that executive sort of upper level. I can manage myself. I can kind of organize my life, and that's where, again, if those kids are having struggles with those kinds of things, that's where those routines and things like that come into play. That's what they need help with. The downstairs brain is very much sort of primitive, right? It's very driven by fight or flight response. It's very rich with emotion. It's driving those emotional responses. So all the physiological responses in your body. So when your heart starts beeping too fast, you feel like it's going to pop out of your chest and run across the floor. Allows us to sort of act before we think, right? So it's that, sort of spontaneous stuff, the sweating, all of those physiological things that are happening to us, right? Very, very primitive. No logical sensation thinking to this part of the brain whatsoever. And I think we have a little video for you that talks
I
a
don't
little
think
bit
it's
about
in this
this.
one. This is not the one. It's a different one. Yeah, I think this is just a source, a
Oh,
resource.
is this just a source? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was the video.
Okay. So here is our poll. Um, so the first set on the left-hand side, again, it's very short, but what we want you to do is click on all the ones that pertain to your child. Do you have that child that gets overly stimulated or under-stimulated? So take a moment to check off everything that you think might be upsetting your child.
Sorry, you should be able to click on things now. I forgot to make it so you could pick multiple options.
Lots of anxiety.
Wow, really high on the sensitive. These are really interesting results, to be quite honest. So we have a lot of overstimulated kids.
Mm-hmm.
They're sensitive.
Let me know if you're ready to move on to the second part.
I actually would just like to talk a little bit about this before we move on. So I'm noticing the sensitive piece, and the sensitive piece I feel sometimes is children get judged for that, right? Like they're too sensitive. Like get over it. It's not a big deal. So we want to be mindful as parents. I'm not saying that's how you're looking at it, but it could come across that way. It's not that big of a deal. And sometimes what happens is that our children we feel overreacting to that thing, right? I gave them the blue cup instead of the purple cup. It's not about the thing, right? So really understanding what's going on. And some of these children are what we would call super feelers. Dr. Adela Fromm, she talks about super feelers, and these children are picking up on stuff that we may not even notice. Could be things that we are not picking up on, the teachers are not picking up on. They're noticing somebody's having a bad day. Maybe that child notices when you have a bad day, even when you're smiling. So they are holding on to all that energy around them and everybody else's pain as well as their own. So just something to keep in mind. Anything else that's jumping out to you, Sue?
Well, I'm just thinking about the overstimulated children as well, right? So, I mean, that can kind of go hand in hand with the sensitivity, right? So, if you've got these sensitive kids and they're being sort of bombarded by, and rightly so. I mean, like a lot of us today are very, very bombarded by a lot of stimulation. We've got screens galore. Everything is virtual, virtual, virtual. We're hearing lots of stuff. We're hearing lots of, rules and constraints being put around us and having to do things and being restricted. So that causes a lot of overstimulation as well. We're being, sort of kept in tight spaces. So again, if you have a sensitive child, that can, sort of impact that overstimulation sort of feeling like I just need to kind of get out of this situation. So, and then you've got the low positive coping skills. So we're going to have to really work with these kids about, can they find a space? Can they have some predetermined sort of time to themselves where they have their own sort of space? Do they have time away from screens? Do they have, time to just do quiet activities where they're just doing, some reading or playing with some clay or doing some hands-on kinds of things? I think you're going to have to do some work with your kids around getting them away from some of those other kinds of activities, to work on having some quieter opportunities to get, kind of reconnected with themselves as well. And that takes modeling from you guys as parents.
Okay, that was good. We can go on to the next one now. Okay, so other issues that might be coming up. So just check off all the ones that apply. So changes, transitions, anything like that, that would go under.
Moves. Could be moves as well.
Yeah, like a move, a new teacher, anything. Just going from one activity to another.
I mean, 2020 has been a change.
Mhm.
Been filled with changes this year. See, and I think that frustration tolerance kind of goes along with some of that sensitivity stuff that we were talking about, right? And again, if you've got those high emotions and you've got those sensitive kids, they're overstimulated, they're going to be more irritable. They're going to be more like little firecrackers that are just ready to just kind of like, boom, just, the frustration just sort of sets them off. So those meltdowns and stuff they're gonna happen more easily because their fuse is a lot shorter, right? When they're so sensitive. So again, building in and having those quiet times, quiet activities, setting times to have time away from all of the extra stimulation. Really important that you model time away from the screens.
Okay, thank you.
Impulsivity, yeah, as well. So that's some of our ADHD kids showing up there, and the being hurried and being rushed. That goes with the upper thinking, the kids that need the routines and need the organization. So if they feel like they're being rushed, those are the kids that need to have those routines and whatnot in place.
Mhm.
So those are those kids, right? The upstairs meltdowns. Changes, I don't really know what to tell you about changes. I mean, changes are things that we have to, we have to help kids move through change and accept change, because change is not necessarily something that's in our control. Um, and it's not an easy transition all the time. But there are some things that, change can be a small thing that I move from one activity to another activity. Change can be as simple as using a when then, when I'm saying, when you finish this, then you can have this. But it can also be a big change because of the COVID stuff that's going on as well, where it's very hard because I can't go and visit the people that I want to visit, or I can't go to the activity that I always go to. And those are really big changes, that things are being taken away from me. So it's really tough to help children understand some of those things. And there are tons of resources that are out there for children and for parents to help their children to understand some of those things.
Okay, we'll just go on to the next slide. Thank you, Louise. Okay, so now we're going to be dealing with those upstairs meltdowns. So routines, guidelines, set expectations. Routines, I hope we all have them. We all need them, especially when you've got a child that is needing them. And they're a lot of work, but they're worth it. And then eventually, once you set a routine, it becomes what everybody just does, right? So some children need a little more structure than others. So, and routines are good because they're promoting healthy habits. They help you prioritize and plan. They teach you time management. How much time do I need to get ready? So if you've got a child that is slow in the morning, likes a cuddle, all this stuff, but you let them sleep in because you think this is a good idea. I'm going to let this child sleep in, and then it's go, 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 go. You need an hour and a half to get ready. I've woken you up, and you only have half an hour. Oh, wait, we don't have your lunch ready. You need a shower. I can't find your shoes, right? So it really stresses that child out. So how much time do they need? Are you organized? Is your home organized? Is your child organized? Does everything have a place? And then building that independence so we don't have to be on top of these children. If they have a checklist, if they know what to expect, we can step back a little bit. And if we have that motivator, like Sue said, when you finish your morning routine and you have extra time, then you can go outside and play. Then you can have one show. Then you can play your Lego. So that predictable, organized home is really going to help a child feel safe, secure, and in control. And then it builds their confidence and it builds their autonomy. So here is an example of a very simple morning routine. Again, you can get these online. I would say the simpler, the better. Some of them are really fancy, and it can be too much. So what are those things that need to get done? Are we expecting that they make their bed? Can't read it. I don't know what it says.
I think the thing about routines too is that, if your child is doing something already really well, you don't need to necessarily add it, right?
Yeah.
So look for, where are some of those sort of trouble spots? Where are they really struggling with? And those are the things that you want, because these aren't things that you're going to have to keep going with for the next 10 years until they graduate from, university. So, you're just looking for those trouble spots to help them sort of learn the routine on their own. And then eventually they have it, they've got it figured out, they know what they need to get done, and then they're good to go, right? So The less on here, as Michelle was saying, the better. And just looking for those few spots where they may need that little extra bit of assistance to try and keep them focused on getting through that sort of spot in the morning or in the evening or wherever it is that they're sort of struggling with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a lot of dots.
Yeah, so this is just a simpler one if you've got older kids. I mean, we all need one. I think even as adults, some of us, I'm notorious for my squirrel moments where, I've unloaded the dishwasher and started a load of laundry. I haven't taken a shower yet. So great, but what do I need to do first? Take a shower. And then I'm running around with my head cut off, and then the children are supposed to learn from me, so we sometimes have to step back and say, how much time do I need? Do I need to get up before the kids? So this is for all ages. And then involve your children in the plan, especially an oppositional child. If we say, this is what we're doing, we're getting up in the morning, we're doing a checklist, da-da-da-da-da, and it's like, no, I'm not going to do this. But if we say, mornings are really tough, getting to bed is really hard, homework at time is tough, let's work on this together. What would be helpful? What parts do you need help with? What parts can you do on your own, right? Would a checklist with pictures help?
And plan for some softness in the morning as well. Nobody wants to wake up to, like, hey, let's just go, 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 go all the time. I mean, there are some people that are that go, 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 but I don't know, there's a lot of kids that like to have that little bit of softness, or you come in and you rub their back, or you have a few moments with them and enjoy that sort of, little bit of a lull time in the morning a little bit, as long as it's within reason. But plan for a little bit of softness built in around to some of the routines. As long as things are getting done, right? As long as we're trying to stay on track and you have those timers, it can help us to kind of move through that, right?
Yeah, and I agree with that, Sue, because I feel, especially for our sensitive children, if you're bursting through the door, let's go, you should have been up by now, come on, come on, come on, and you're sweating, you're upset, you're setting the tone as well, right? So that sensitive child is going to pick up on that and sometimes go along, or they're going to get upset, or they're going to completely shut down and be like, no, I'm staying in bed, I'm not involved, I'm not getting involved in this. So yeah, so I think that's a great thing. Notice effort. And you may have to add a reward chart. And a reward chart is just like potty training. When they follow through with their checklist, they get a check. With some children, they would need a check for each one. After you get 3 checks, you get a loonie. You get an extra story at bedtime. It could just be that they get a sticker and they're happy with the sticker. The point of the reward chart is a motivator, and I'm noticing what you're doing. And it keeps track that they're doing a good job. So you don't always have to add a reward chart, but with some children that will help. And we talk about those things in our other workshops like positive parenting or some of our other parenting workshops.
Did you want to just reference this as a...
Yeah, so this is just a reference for you guys to take a look, because chores can be part of that as well, part of working together as a team. If your child is craving time with you, wants time, and then you feel like you're running around doing everything, and then I want some time with you, but now I'm agitated because I've just run around and cleaned up, and now you want me to sit and watch a movie or color with you? I've had to do all this work. So instead, let's build up their self-esteem. Let's build up that team family approach, and let's work together. And what can children do to kind of help out? Because that boosts their self-esteem. You're working together as a team, and this could be part of their routine as well. So we're not always in that chaotic house that everybody has a job. Even if you just set a timer for 5 minutes and say, everybody go around and pick up 10 things. Here's a bin for you. Here's a bin for you. What doesn't belong in the living room? What is dirty that needs to go into the sink? Make it really simple, and that can be part of those routines, and it helps to calm the chaos. It's really nice to walk into a clean kitchen in the morning. It's really nice to be able to find your bed, so if your child has a chaotic bedroom, that can cause them stress as well. Okay, so just some suggestions for different ages and stages, and ask them what they'd like to do. Maybe you have a few suggestions and they can pick the one that they'd like to do.
I really like this house rules. Make it simple. Certainly if there are some specific things that you need to have for your household, to add on the list. But if you're creating house rules, do it together, right? Sit down together, have that conversation. If you need to pass, the talking stick so everybody is heard, then pass the talking stick. But house rules need to be something that need to be discussed so everybody's aware of them. Everybody knows what's expected. Everybody knows, yeah, possibly what the consequences are if things don't happen. But keep them simple and not too many. But these are great, just basic rules. Using your words, not your hands, using the inside voice, yelling is not okay, right? Use your calm down zone. This is that what we were talking about, having a calm down space. So if you're feeling like you're going to get sort of into that meltdown zone and you need to take a break, you need to use that calm down spot, right? And then try it twice, right? So you're encouraging that independence. Michelle was talking about this earlier. So make that a house rule that they try it on their own twice before they ask for help. Unless they're, of course, if they're really, really stuck, right? Because we don't want to discourage kids from asking for help if they really need it. And then no screens an hour before bed. That's just kind of like a general rule of thumb that we know that screen times keeps the brain active for up to 2 hours after they shut off any screen time. So when we try to get kids to go to bed, and if they've been on screens right up until the time they're hopping into bed, those brains are still going, 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 going for up to 2 hours. So we want to try and, dial that back at least an hour before they go up to bed so that by the time they have maybe a bath, wash their face, have some story time, snuggle in, cuddle up with something. By the time they get through all of that, hopefully they're time to settle down, right? So again, just some basic house rules, but if you have hot zones that you need to address in your family, then discuss it and put it on the list. But make the expectations clear and make it so that everybody is aware of what those are.
Yeah. And this is going to help those children that do not know what the expectations are. It's going to help those kids that easily get frustrated that you do try, because they do get frustrated and then an adult's just going to jump in and fix it. Then they go to school, no one's helping them, and then they're having meltdowns at school because at home we're doing everything for them. So we want to set it up, but we have to be able to tolerate a little bit of distress in our child, but let's talk about it because we want to set them up for success. If you're walking on eggshells, making sure everything's perfect for the child, and then they go out into the world and the teacher's like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to do that. Or the kid next to them is like, I don't care if this is your spot. It's my spot today, and it's like, well, this is not the way it works. And then my head pops off, right? So these are things to kind of normalize rules and expectations and focus on effort. All right, so this is probably what people are waiting for, the downstairs.
The downstairs meltdown, yes.
Mm-hmm. So, learning to deal with the downstairs meltdowns. How do we support a child? Well, that's, again, where the self-care comes in, because if you're vibrating and upset, trying to get a child to stop getting upset, that can turn into more. So being able to stay calm and positive and be supportive and patient, ask what they need, offer empathy, really tough to do sometimes in the moment when your child is struggling. And you're not doing all these things. Depending on the child, depending on the situation, you're going to have to kind of figure out what is best for them. And we're going to go through these a little bit more. But if they're really struggling, asking them what they need right then and there might not work. But you could say, do you need some space? Or do you want me to stay with you? And then what does that look like for safety-wise, especially if...
And I just wanted to add in here, too, that these are skills for parents, right? So although we're not going to get into great detail about some of these in this workshop, we do have a 4-session course that's going to come up this spring called Managing Meltdowns, that really will talk about some of these skills for parents, about how to sort of reframe your negative thinking and sort of be able to shift some of your perspectives, to try and work with your child in a little bit different way, so that maybe you're working more together, rather than from that sort of I in charge parent perspective. So something to think about, because these are, as Michelle said, these are challenging, and they are skills for parents. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that you might want to, check out our website and maybe think about maybe signing up for that come this spring.
Okay. So how do we model empathy? So we empathize with your child. Are you feeling scared of that dog? Be a role model. Use I messages. Validate your child's difficult emotions. Use pretend play. So we're practicing. I just want to see if there's one more. No. So we're practicing, we're empathizing. So the empathy, I can understand that you would be upset because that dog is pretty scary, or you'd be upset because your friend didn't want to play with you. Being a role model ourselves, that we are able to give that empathy, we are able to even validate ourselves using I messages, right, instead of saying you. And validate your child's difficult emotions. Try to match emotion with emotion. And, we're not throwing butterflies and fairies at them. We're kind of matching what they are doing and saying, right? So if they're feeling sad, then we're going to feel sad along with them. And sometimes just sitting with them in silence beside them is saying, I'm here for you. And then using pretend play to practice doing some role modeling, talking about emotions, being able to validate that in the teddy bear, but we're really validating it in the child. And what are some of those situations that come up? Let's practice this. So different ways to kind of work on that.
It takes practice.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the video about flipping your lid. So Dr. Siegel kind of talks about this. And, it's that whole lizard brain, monkey brain idea. So we will show you the video.
Okay, I am just going to switch over to the video side of things, and I'll click play. Sue and Michelle, you might want to turn off your mics while the video's playing.
Sure.
So in this first classroom segment, you're going to actually see the first mindfulness introduction we give to children. And it's where we teach them about the brain, we teach them about their smart part and their lizard brain, and we introduce them to Bob, who is our kind of mindfulness mascot, who is kind of the personification of their lizard brain. And so we introduce them to this, and we use the glitter jar as again another way for them to kind of understand what's going to happen as they learn to practice mindfulness. So hello everyone. Thank you so much for having us. And we're going to be visiting your class and teaching you about your brain. So if you lift up your hands, everyone, pick up your hand. In your hand, you have a model of your brain. Your wrist here represents the brain stem. And this is the part of your brain that keeps you breathing and your heart's beating. Thank goodness for this part of the brain, right? Now, if you open up your hands and you put your thumb down in here, this represents the limbic part of the brain, sometimes called a reptilian part of the brain, okay? So this part of the brain is always scanning the environment going, is everything safe? Is anything dangerous out there? Is anything safe? Is everything dangerous out there? And this part of the brain is amazing if ever there is real danger out there. Okay, because this part of the brain can make you run fast, fight strong. You can also freeze if you're scared. You think of a deer, you ever hear deer in the headlights, that expression? And so it's very good when we're in dangerous situations, but when we're not, it's not always the most useful. And then we have this part. You put your fingers over your thumb. This is called the prefrontal cortex. And this is the real smart part of the brain. This is where good decisions are, your math, your ability to read. All of that is in this part of the brain. And it's the part that helps you sit still in class when you need to sit still in class. And it's the part of you that knows language. It's the part of you that understands what I'm saying right now and that you can follow along. So we call this your smart part. So this is your smart part, and bing, this is your lizard part. And whenever you get really mad, sad, scared, or super excited, your brain, your smart part, can go offline and it goes bing, and you get your lizard part. Okay? But are lizards good at reading?
No.
Do they make good decisions?
No.
Yeah. We brought our friend Bob. Now Bob, he's a type of lizard.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, he's technically a chameleon. And but Bob, what kind of brain does Bob have, guys?
Lizard brain.
Does he have a smart part?
No.
Okay, Bob, let's see if you can do some math. Let's just check this out. So Bob, what is 2 plus 2?
2 plus 2 is 1,000.
Did you get it right?
No, it's 4. No, it's fish.
So,
Yeah, it's fish.
yeah, he doesn't have this part of the smart part of the brain, so all he can do is really worry about his safety. You ever looked at a lizard in your backyard? What do they do?
They run.
And they run because they're always scared because you're so big. To them, you're a big giant monster walking by, right? So that's what they're worried about. They're always worried about safety. So why don't you, we'll show you a little bit more here about how the brain works.
So let's imagine that this is our brain, okay? And when it's nice and calm and we have our smart parts on, it's easier to think clearly and see clearly, right? Can you see right through the glass? But sometimes, if we flip our lids, right, and that reactive reptilian part of our brain takes over, and we might get angry or sad or scared, look what happens to your brain. You see all the glitter inside there being shaken up? Everything is flowing around really quickly. It's hard to see clearly when your brain is in that state. It's also hard to think clearly. But look what's happening if we just watch and take a breath. It just takes a little bit of time. And if we're patient and still, the glitter starts to settle. And we can do the same thing with our brains by just watching and waiting, maybe taking a breath, and our smart parts can get back in control, and we can think clearly and see more clearly.
Just wondering if anybody has any questions at all about the video.
I was talking with my mic off.
I've done that before.
Yeah. This is also a good video to watch with your children so they can understand. Some children get really upset with themselves, and some parents will say it's like that Jekyll and Hyde. 1 minute their heads are popping off, and the next minute they're really sad and upset. And we get really upset with them because it's like, well, if you're so sorry, why do you act this way? This
I
is
don't
why.
know. And this helps
Exactly.
them understand. Yeah.
And their brain is under construction until 25. So if you look at all the things that you're checking off, your child is struggling with that. We don't have that routine. They don't know how to calm down. They don't understand what's going on. There's a lot of, shaming and blaming and getting in trouble. And we need to kind of help them with that and create a plan. Okay?
So, and you can find all kinds of things on YouTube about how to create a glitter jar. And, again, this is part of that, having that calm down space, and the kids could learn to use their own glitter jar as that reminder for them, right? So that if I shake it and I take those few deep breaths, maybe, watch a few videos on, there's lots of videos about, belly breathing and teddy bear breathing and things like that, so that the kids can, learn if I take a few deep breaths, then I can learn to, let my smart part of my brain sort of take over and come back in control of me, right? That I can be in charge. And kids love to be in charge. So again, if you try and talk to them that way, that it's about them learning to be in charge of themselves, that kind of can help them as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
Thanks for putting that in, Louise, the link.
And having these suggestions, we found these online, but work with your kids. Have a Zen zone created or quiet zone that they can go to proactively. Notice when they are doing these things. Have a copy and good jar. And when it gets to a certain line, they get an extra story, or we're going to have a sleepover in front of the TV on a Friday night. You don't want the line too high on that jar, especially if the child's struggling, but slowly you can start moving that line up. So we want to create the opportunity for them to try these things. Add it to your routine. I mean, if you're a person that works out, do you just say, I'll figure it out. This week, maybe I'll go? No, you set it in your head. You set it in your routine. You make the time, and that's what your children need to do. But the space has to be set up an hour before bedtime, 2 hours before bedtime. Maybe we're having a quiet afternoon for everybody. Everybody's going to do quiet activities on their own. So it's not just that kid. It's everybody working on it.
I think we're going to have to just leave this for them to be able to watch.
Yeah. So Name It to Tame It, again, is Dr. Siegel. And these emojis are a lot of fun. You can look up an emotion wheel to kind of broaden your child's emotional vocabulary, because being able to say, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling grumpy, I'm feeling frustrated, research says just being able to label that will help you calm down. And the tame it part is, what are we doing to calm it down? How are we working on that? And you can't say, let's do your belly breathing when they've never done belly breathing. We can't say, let's go color something when it's like, I don't like to color. That's your idea. This is what I want to do instead. So you can give them a few choices. Again, what do you need from me right now? And it's really working on that, how to tame it every day, practicing. So when stuff comes up, they're ready to do it. Anything else you want to add, Sue?
I think that's good.
Yeah, so this video you can watch later again. These are actually children doing it, a family, practicing using Name It to Tame It. So it's kind of a cool video to watch with your kids. But it's just working with your children and saying, this is an upsetting time. This is the emotion. Label their emotion. And how can we work together, right? And it's not in the moment. In the moment, it's, do you need some space? What do you need from me right now? But then you're planning on working on all these things ahead of time.
And again, if you're dealing with some emotional kinds of issues with your kids, we do have some other emotion workshops that you're welcome to check out. And I know that your space has some of our previous ones that we have videotaped as well. So you're welcome to check those out from here as well, while you're waiting to maybe join us in the future.
Does anybody have any questions about the content? Wondering how you would incorporate this at home?
So it looks like, it sounds like, right? It sounds like you're feeling, it looks like, right? I can see that. So it's, how do you use those kinds of words? I can understand why you might feel such a certain way, right? So that's part of that language for validating the emotion, but you're helping them to identify the emotion. So using the language along with that can help that as well.
Okay. So again, just a few other things that can be helpful, and we have lots of other workshops for these things. And it's just taking it one step at a time and remembering that children are very emotional beings. Their brain is under construction until 25, and that we have to take a step back as well, and not to jump in and fix everything, and be able to tolerate a little bit of distress in our children and give them the tools that they need.
And make sure you're doing some of that self-care for yourselves as well. Remember, we want you to be in charge of your thinking brain too.
Right.
I think that's awesome. So does anybody have any questions before we finish the night off?
Okay. If you're looking for our other classes, you can check this link here, and all our classes will be there for future classes. And again, we have many classes that we're going to be doing here, so you can check yourspacehamilton.ca, and again, this website that we have the link for.
Thank you for coming.